पेरला आहे प्रश्न.
Wonderful evening to all the participants of this webinar. At the outset, from the management and the editorial team of Swarajya, we are deeply grateful to all our subscribers for continuing to support us during the last 8 years of our journey. I mean, the subscribers have been the backbone of our success story, and I'm just like overwhelmed by the support that we've received from each one of you. So we have around close to 25,000 subscribers currently, and over the course of the last 8 years, we have had more than 60 to 70,000 subscribers who have supported at several points of time. And as a part of a new initiative to constantly be in touch with our valued subscribers, we plan to do a series of subscriber-only digital events where we want to get in thought leaders, from subject matter experts from various fields to give you some very useful and relevant insights to various issues and themes. So, as we are heading towards 2023, 2023, I mean, of course, it's cliche to say that 2023 will be a very crucial and critical year, but beyond the cliches, definitely 2023 will be a very significant and critical year for India, and definitely the global factors are going to play a role. So we just thought that we would uh, you know flag off this seminar series with a very distinguished speaker. I mean, of course, he's a part of the Swarajya family and has been spearheading our editorial initiatives for the last 5, 6 years. One of India's best known journalists who writes copiously in the intersection of economics and politics, Mr. Jagannathan. Jaggi sir, welcome, sir. Great to have you here.
Hello. Hello. Namaskar to all of you. I'm glad to be here with you today. So it's been a great journey for Swarajya so far. And though I joined Swarajya after it was launched, I think for me it has been a very much an integral part of me, both my thought growth and sharing with this new ecosystem that we're trying to create. So I hope we build together, we build a brand that lasts far beyond any of our lifetime and takes the India narrative, the Bharat narrative forward quite substantially. So today I'd like to share with you a few thoughts before I take questions on where I think the world and India is heading, including our own government. I have made some couple of slides. So basically, I'm looking at both global and India because we don't exist in a vacuum. We can't talk only about India without knowing where the rest of the world is headed. So I thought I'll, with a brief introduction to where the world is headed, and then we'll talk about India specifically, political and economic trends here, and how they're likely to pan out between now and 2024, when the next major election cycle will conclude. So with that, let me start. Let me tell you about the first slide. Uh, yeah. So basically, we know, of course, every year we say that this is such a difficult year. So many things have happened, good things, bad things, whatever it is. But we know that for the first time, Europe went to war with another European country. That's been, this is the first time almost since the Second World War. Though, of course, Russia has been nibbling at some states in the periphery. But this is the first major war between two European powers, Ukraine and Russia, and most of the rest of Europe is on the side of Ukraine and this thing. So that is one part. Second thing, we just saw the end of COVID, and India has bounced back very strongly, but the rest of the world has actually gone down under. So we are actually the last man standing. And if you see the status of the world's oldest democracy and the world's worst autocracy, that is the US and China, the USA, by the way, is still counting votes in the November 8th general election. We know where they stand. And they have an inflation figure that is higher than ours. Then you have China, which is still battling COVID after having first launched it and then claimed that they've already had zero COVID. They are finding that they can't, and their own population is fed up. They don't know how to handle it. We handled it one of the best. the Western media will tell you that we didn't handle it all that well, but we did. So let's talk about this. So the broad political trends is Russia and Ukraine is heading for a stalemate, basically because neither party can afford to give up. Ukraine, for obvious reasons, will not give up because they want their country back. Russia, for pure reasons of pride, cannot end the war. So unless Europe and America or friends like India and Israel and France actually try to bring out a kind of solution, which seems unlikely at this point, it is going to head towards a perpetual war. You remember, Europe is famous for these wars. The Treaty of Westphalia, which states went into war repeatedly against each other, the 30, 40 years they were going on war. While this may not last 30, 40 years, but what will happen is whenever it comes to either a stalemate or a close, we will find that Russia, now that it's been established, power cannot win a war on the ground when there is a strong local resistance to it. It is likely to become a military equivalent of a North Korea. It is a military superpower with a veto in the in the Security Council, but it is now going to be a much diminished power, which will be heavily dependent on China for sustenance in many ways and for markets. Of course, India will also remain a friend, but Russia's scope and size will actually diminish at the end of the war. So Ukraine will gain gradually, but Europe does not have the will to rebuild it, which means billions and billions of dollars of relief have to be given to Ukraine to rebuild itself. So it's a long 10, 15-year process. So it's not actually very useful even for them to continue the war. It's best for them to agree to a limited ceasefire, start rebuilding before things go out of control. So as a result of this war, what will happen is Germany and Japan have realized that a war in Europe cannot be won by America, it will have to be won by themselves. And Japan knows that the war or Chinese belligerence cannot be won by support from America because America is not going to send troops to help Japan. Or just they did that in South Korea and South Vietnam, but they will not do this anymore, as the Ukraine thing showed, and as their terrible withdrawal from Afghanistan showed. America does not have any more appetite for war. What it will do, it will keep financing wars so that its own military industrial complex is in good shape. It will, however, become a tilting factor in all major wars. So if there is something happening between India and China, US is likely to come a little more quietly on our side, but it will not do anything more than help us with more ammunition and things like that. So all this, if we manage our geopolitics, our friendships, and our economy well, we should become a 5 trillion economy in another 3 years or 4 years. And that is in fiscal 26-27. That is, we are likely to become a $5 trillion economy, but it could happen earlier because a lot depends. When you talk of the economy in dollar terms, everything depends on the exchange rate. If the rupee, for example, goes up to 75 rupees, suddenly your 5 trillion will come faster. If it goes to 95, then that 5 trillion will take longer. So we should not actually set our goals in dollar terms. We should set in terms of the constant rupee, and that is where we need to do. So the next, right? Thanks. Next slide, please.
Yeah, we are on the next slide, sir.
Yeah. So a lot of changes are going to happen in the global economy and especially with big tech because everybody, Elon Musk has taken over Twitter. Facebook is going through large trouble. Apple is also going to face headwinds because I think half their production has to be shifted out of China. They all became, many of these guys were, Apple especially and Google were becoming $2 trillion companies. They are now lost quite a bit of the thing. And there is a lot of anger among ordinary Americans that these companies have become far too big and far too powerful for this thing. Europe already knows it, but Europe doesn't have the equivalent of a Google or a Amazon or this thing. So most probably the process to break these companies up will begin now in 2023. It may take 4 or 5 years before these companies agree to change and downsize, but they'll have to split, just like America split AT&T or the oil monopolies before the Second World War. So this will happen. So emerging markets will be the flavor of 2023, and India will be sort of neutral. I don't think we are going to have another boom year. at least in the stock markets, for the simple reason that we are already very highly valued. And next year will be a moderate year for us. The rest of the emerging markets, which did not participate in our kind of rally, will probably be the flavor. And China will revive slowly, but far more slowly. They have too many internal problems, not just political, even economic, because they have to shift their focus from uh, an export-oriented economy to substantially internal consumption driven. That's a long process and it will take them time. So stock markets will be flat for us. It will rise in the rest of the emerging markets. The US markets will also be flat, if not decline. Europe will, of course, fall because interest rates are rising. So for us, the big takeout for 2023 financially, both at the personal level as that, you have to move a lot of your investments to fixed income mode. Don't forget that over the next 3 to 4 months or even 5 months, interest rates in India will peak. It will also peak in the US. So you're now getting interest rates that are well above the rate of inflation in India, though not in the US. The US has farther to go. In India, actually shifting to fixed rate funds is a good idea for all potential savers, especially senior citizens. I am thrilled being one of those. Next, please. So Indian economy will grow at 6.7 to 7% this year. So we have another 3 months to go. There will be a slight slowdown, largely in the export sector, and that will bring down our overall growth rate. Next year we'll have 6.5%. That's most likely. And usually, because it's the run up to an election year, I wouldn't be surprised if we actually did much better. And the budget that's coming up in February 1 will be highly election oriented. There will be sops for the middle class. A lot of things are being discussed. The final shape we will know only on 1st of February. But the government is acutely aware that one of its strongest support base, the middle class, feels that they've been left out for the last few years. Now, this is the time something will happen. Remember, the same thing happened in 2018 budget, where a lot of concessions were given to, say, the middle class. For example, the second home was exempted from being treated as deemed income for rental things if you own two homes. A lot of concessions were also given for bank interest rates and other things, for medical insurance, those kind of things. And of course, I think the basic income tax slab might well be raised. So we have to see what's going to happen. And the new income tax scheme is likely to be tweaked because only 10-12% of people have accepted it. Some kind of concessions likely to go there, so it might become more attractive. So I would suspect we should look at that. So, so for middle income savers, this is the best time to start taking money out of, say, risky avenues like, say, stocks. You must still retain stocks because stocks will deliver much better returns over the medium to long term. In the short term, I think rebalancing towards debt instruments, fixed deposits, these are a good thing. Especially those in the lower income brackets, this is great because your interest income will largely be tax free or substantially at lower brackets. But for those, and even for those in higher brackets, it's good to move up because today, if you notice, HDFC offers a 7.75% interest rate on a 5-year deposit. Okay. Means even if you pay 30% tax, you get 5% plus net return, which is after tax and which actually is just under the net real rate of return, which current inflation is at about 5.4, 5.5. If this falls below 5%, which will happen in the next 6 to 8 months, you will start getting real returns. So even for high income brackets, this is a good move. So let me see what next, please. Yeah. So in this interaction, we'll look at what happens in the political scene and what will happen in the economic scene. I've said some of the economic scenes. We've seen 7 or 8 elections this year: Maharashtra, Gujarat, Bihar, Uttarakhand, Punjab, Goa, and of course Himachal. Right? We know that the BJP has had good results in the two of the most important elections, that is Uttar Pradesh and Gujarat. This is the core base of the BJP, and it will always seek to do very well there, and they've done that. So their core base is very, very strong. So Himachal and all tend to turn in Lok Sabha elections. So the loss of the assembly by a marginal amount will not matter. Goa has retained. Punjab is a difficult thing because the BJP is still in the process of rebuilding alliances and others. So we don't know what will happen. But what is certain is that some kind of new alliance to take on the Aam Aadmi Party will come up by 2024 in the Lok Sabha elections. What shape it will take, I don't know. But certainly, people do not want the Aam Aadmi Party to send up a lot of MPs from Punjab, which we know is very risky because they have alliances with all kinds of anti-national characters. So we'll now come to the next question. What will happen in 2024? Also, that next, please. So just to come back to the economy before we come to this thing, I think we have reached what I would call a Goldilocks state, which means we are just right. Our inflation is coming well under control slowly. So in 5-6 months, inflation will become well under control. Our growth is still above 6%, and which is very good given the kind of global dynamics. Then our current account deficit fall, oil prices are falling, then interest rates will start peaking, which means investment can start picking up, capital investment will pick up. Our growth is picking up just at the right time before the elections. So digitization, 5G, there are huge scope for the economy to grow even faster based on digital technologies, startups, ecosystem and all. Startups, of course, are not getting the kind of funding this year as they were received last year because of the tighter money conditions. But as we go forward, they will actually start attracting funds again. And I say second half of next year is when startups will again start getting fresh funding based on performance. So we are in a good spot right now because all things, and plus there is the world which is worrying about China. So foreign direct investment will come to India. Our PLI scheme is just beginning to take shape. It's probably by end of 2023, it will start delivering real production growth. Our manufacturing share will move up from about 15 to 16, 17%. Hopefully, over the 5 years, it will move to 20% plus, and that's what's going to happen. One reason many people talk about how our deficit with China has gone up. Actually, that deficit has gone up largely because of manufacturing. Because what has happened is a lot of the Chinese companies have set up mobile phone and other electronics factories in India. These import a lot of goods from components from China. Now, as we indigenize the components, that China dependency will come down. Same thing will happen in pharma, where we import a lot of APIs and other things from China. But the PLI scheme will shift a large part of the bulk drugs manufacture to India over the next 3-4 years. Our China dependence will come down by 2026-27. So immediately the trade deficit will spike. There's no point destroying the relationship because it will bring down growth immediately if you try to directly stop Chinese dependence now. But over 3 to 5 years, we are moving away, and that is a good strategy to follow. Next, please. So this is what it is. We are actually there is no alternative zone. We are the only large economy where large investors who are looking at medium to long term growth can actually come here. With the exception of the USA, which is a unique kind of country where they can print endless amounts of money and still the dollar goes strong. If any other country did what the USA did, their currency will crash. But USA, it is even in the USA, about three-quarters of the dollars printed are actually abroad. So if all these dollars were to return physically to the USA will have 20% inflation and their own economy will crash. It's only because all those drug cartels and thugs and crooks and all hold a lot of US dollars, it is not impacting US economy domestically. So, but we have run our economy well, especially because we have not followed the idiotic advice provided by world famous economist who says go on spending money when the supply chains are disrupted. You would have had 12 and 15% inflation if you have followed these guys. But Modi, being conservative fiscally, actually did the right thing. We are actually in a good zone. So we are going to be in a good place this year and the next at least. After that, it depends on how PLI takes off, how our current account, how oil prices behave. All those things are there. But we are currently in a good place. Next, please. So now we come to the politics. Okay. I think unlike 2018-19, when the economy actually wasn't doing well, this time in the run-up to the 2024 elections, our economy will be doing much better. It means that usually it takes a lot of effort for governments to match their economic performance to coincide with their political needs. this is the first time this can probably happen. So if the next 2 years we have good growth of at least 6%, we will have a booming economy just coinciding with the rise of political rhetoric. I think it's a good omen for the current BJP government. As long as they don't make major mistakes, I think the economy should be doing just fine. As the saying goes, it's the economy is stupid. But in 2018-19, the government got the benefit of the doubt and got a very good mandate based on, despite the fact that the economy wasn't doing so well, they got a thing with all those Balaport and also the whole lot of initiatives to help the poor. That helped the government. This time, all those will work. Plus, we are going to do that. So, if you look at the Modi strategy, this is what they're doing. I expect the government, there are several major elections coming up this year. Most important, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, Chhattisgarh. Then you have Tripura and two other states in the northeast. Then you have Karnataka. And I expect that the BJP may not do as well in Karnataka. Chhattisgarh will be difficult, but Rajasthan and Madhya Pradesh, it might do much better. Tripura, it should be able to hold on as from what it seems right now. So I think overall 23, 2022, 23 year will be neutral for BJP. Some successes, some failures. It will be okay. The same scheme of helping, targeting women beneficiaries, like for example, Nal Se Jal, Nal Pe Jal, will it's a huge benefit. Like Ujjwala in the first term, this time there will be huge benefits from reaching water to every household. This means that even if that water is available for half an hour a day, it will mean that women do not have to walk 4 or 5 kilometers to go and collect the 2 pots of water. So this is such a huge benefit that I think everybody underestimates it. So by 2024, almost all Indian houses will have uh, piped water. And even if this water is available for a limited period of time during the day, it will be a huge benefit. All you need to do is put your bucket, collect your 5 buckets of water, and you're done. So this is great. So you're going to have a big beneficiary boom happening even all the way to 2024, even as the major macroeconomic boom continues. Next, please. Question really is whether the opposition can get its acts together. See, in theory, if in every state the BJP faces only one combined opposition party, the BJP cannot win, except in some states. So if that literally happens, then the BJP will be down to around 200 seats. It can win 200 seats on its own most of the time, even if it's battling alone or with very small allies. But the truth is, this is actually theoretically possible, but practically impossible because most of the people who are supposed to gang up against BJP and Modi are actually local entities. Like, for example, TRS and Telugu Desam and Congress, will they come together in Telangana? Similarly, will Congress and TDP come together in Telangana, in Andhra? Similarly, will ADMK and DMK come together and think? Will CPM and Congress come together? Of course, Kerala is not a major factor, but the BJP will probably go along with some minor parties and things like that and see if they can get their first MP from Kerala in 2024. So the what I'm trying to say is it's not so practical for opposition parties to put up a single candidate against BJP, even though they may try. In some places it is possible. But as you saw, the minute they try to do their own thing, like AAP going to Gujarat, what happens is BJP gets a sweep, which was BJP would have won Gujarat anyway with 120, 125 seats. When AAP came into the picture, suddenly it became 156. So this is what will happen when the opposition does not put up a single united candidate against the BJP. And unfortunately, the interests of various parties do not align. Let's say in Delhi, if Congress and AAP were to combine, they would get at least 2 or 3 seats in Delhi out of 7. But now they will get 0 out of 7 or 1 out of 7. That's what will happen. So basically, the opposition finds it difficult to get its act together, and I think that will be a factor in BJP's favor. Next, please. And let's not forget, while in the state elections, the Modi charisma may not work as well, except in Hindi belt, it will work pretty well. It may also work reasonably well in some parts of Karnataka, some parts of Telangana, and some other states. But in places like, say, West Bengal or Orissa, it is the local party that has to deliver. Huh? So in West Bengal and Bihar and some parts of Jharkhand, the local leadership has to do that. Jharkhand, I think there is a good chance. Bihar also there is a good chance because as we saw in the recent by-polls, the BJP actually defeated the JDU. JDU is falling apart. It's only the RJD and other combination that works. So Bihar should still be good. So my guess is that whatever happens in the assembly elections this year, there will be a significant difference. Even if the BJP loses Karnataka, it will not gain less than, it will not do less than 15 to 26 in Karnataka in a Lok Sabha election because there the Modi factor works. So I think that's what's going to happen. In J&K, the BJP will surely win 3 seats, if not 4. And it's only in the Kashmir Valley that it has a problem. In Jammu and Ladakh, it will win. So we'll see. In Punjab, we'll have to see whether the new BJP finds some kind of a weak alliance with the Akalis and the, but Congress they cannot do. So it's a bigger problem. So it could end up giving the AAP all the seats because the non-AAP vote will get divided between the BJP-led Amrinder Singh and others, and then the Akali will. It's like a Gujarat situation in reverse, which works against in favor of AAP in Punjab. So let's see. But Rajasthan and Madhya Pradesh will do well. Chhattisgarh will be tougher. But last time BJP won the bulk of the Chhattisgarh Lok Sabha seats, even though it lost badly to the Congress in the assembly elections. So let's see. We'll have to watch out. So next, please. Next slide.
We have moved to the next slide, sir.
Yeah. So anyway, this is more about saying what really Modi has delivered because I think his persona towers about that of his party. So while his party has strengths and cadre and other things, it's the Modi charisma that will carry the day in Lok Sabha. So whatever they would naturally get, say 200 seats as a party, it suddenly takes it all over majority things once Modi comes into the picture. So I think as long as Modi is there, BJP has a huge advantage. The problem for BJP will start after the Modi era ends. So that's of course still some time away. Hopefully after 2024, we'll know what will be the shape of the succession. And by then, we have a different set of political parameters to look at. Next, please. Two or three things that will make a difference is suppose, let's say, the China attacks, let's say, Taiwan, and then oil goes up to 120. Inflation comes again. Russia or somebody end up throwing a nuclear bomb on Ukraine, or yet another major war erupts somewhere else. Those are major problems, and it's going to be a problem. So, and the Chinese are not amused by what's happening. That everybody thinks that India is the next big thing, and they are not amused that everybody is saying China plus one. They don't want a plus one; they want only China. So they will try to clear the pitch for us. They're already doing that. I mean, in 2020 they did something in Ladakh. Just a few days back, they seem to be attempting something in Arunachal at Tawang area. So we don't know whether we're going to end up in some kind of a border war, limited border war, or whatever it is. So these things can set back, but politically it may still benefit the BJP if they acquit themselves well. But economically, that will be a huge cost because you'll have to divert a huge lot of resources from development to the defense effort. So we'll have to see how this moves. And that's why I'm saying these caveats will depend. Next, please. So what is happening broadly in all elections these days is very rarely are we having a hung assembly or a hung parliament. The electorate realizes that it does not benefit from having multiple parties that pull in opposite directions who can't take a decision and then don't benefit anybody. So they're giving clear verdicts, and most people are now staying for the long term. There are many chief ministers are multi-term. Some are getting at least a second term. I mean, this is happening repeatedly. And Modi himself got a second term. UPA also got a second term. So we are not in a situation where people are just saying, let's throw these guys out and try somebody else every 5 years. Our electorate believes and understands that delivery of development takes long time. And having a confused kind of setup is not working. So I think this is working in favor of Modi. And in the regional parties also are benefiting from this. So this fundamental shift in electorate behavior, unlike the 90s and the last decade of the 20th century, where electors were just irritated with all politicians and kept throwing them out. In every election, there used to be a change. This time, we are not seeing that. Even in Himachal, where there has been a shift, the shift was so marginal that if a few rebels had not left the BJP, maybe they might have won. So we are actually talking about a situation where they might have got a pro-incumbency vote if they had handled the party a little better. In Uttarakhand, the BJP came back again. In UP, they came back again. In Gujarat, they have come back for the seventh time. So these are the things. So let's see. We'll have to watch out for that. So these are some trends we have seen. Okay, so this is my prediction for the NDA. So I think in a worst case scenario, NDA will score about 303 because I am counting some losses in Bihar and to some extent in West Bengal and some maybe a bit in Maharashtra. And also in some of the southern states, it might or it might be some this thing. But basically, I don't think there will be a substantial change. In fact, there may even be gains. So we have to see what will happen. The thing, my guess is that the BJP total will be somewhere around 272 minimum, and with the scope for an upside, that is, we are going to see a BJP performance that's closer to 2014 and not 2019. That is what my best guess is at this point of time. But as you know, it's too early to predict. But these are my predictions for 2024 based on current trends that I see. Next, please. Yeah. So this is basically my conclusion, which I said. We've got Modi likely to come back to power in 2024, but with maybe a marginally smaller majority. But many things can change. He may end up with a bigger majority also, but that for that many things have to go in his favor, like the global trend, the local opposition splintering, all that thing we'll have to see. But if everything goes wrong, then we are looking at what the previous slide I mentioned. That is a bare majority for the BJP with about 30 for allies and all that. So if things go largely in favor of what the government is doing, especially on the economy front and the external front, and no war with China, then I think we should see a substantially better majority. Let's see. We have to change our guesses. So that's basically what I said just now. So
Just
right.
one more
Yeah.
last slide. Sir.
Yeah. Okay. So basically, that's it. I'm saying is able to see Maharashtra is the key thing. Uh, I think they've got a good leader in West Bengal now in Suvendu Adhikari. If he is able to help the BJP retain side, in Odisha they will do at least as well as before. In Telangana they could do better depending on how they manage this thing. In Andhra, I don't know. If they tie up with TDP, they have a better chance. But if they don't, then they will again hit a zero or maybe get one seat or something like that. In Tamil Nadu, they should do much better. At least the NDA should do. So, because in Annamalai, they have a good leader, and if he is able to get a good alliance with ADMK, PMK, and some of these other parties, then I think Tamil Nadu might actually send up 8 or 10 seats for the NDA, with the BJP getting 2 or 3. So Kerala might indeed send the first thing. Karnataka might send anything from 15 to 20 seats, and Telangana 4 to 6 seats, and maybe one from Andhra. But it all depends on how. Yeah, of course, if TDP and BJP align in Andhra, they might do a little better. But there's no sign of that happening right now. So let's see what happens. We will look at. We'll wait for closer to the elections. Right.
Thank you
So
so
with
much,
that,
Jaggi.
yeah. So with that, I conclude my broad points. Now, feel free to discuss anything or whatever you think we can.
Yeah. So,
So if there are
Jaggi,
any questions, we can please do
yeah,
ask. I'll be able to, or if you want to discuss something, I'm happy to do so.
sure. Jagit, thank you so much. That was, a pretty nice insight on, the trends that you envisage across politics economics and all that. So in terms of the we've received a lot of questions from our subscribers. We had sent invitation to other subscribers, and some of them have submitted the questions. So we'll probably pick two or
Yeah,
three, and then if we have time, maybe we can invite a couple of subscribers to come and also ask the questions directly to you.
yeah,
So just to utilize my privilege as the moderator for the session, let me begin by asking you one question that you have from the broad trends, especially on the economy, where I saw a very interesting slide in terms of your prediction for the 2000, I mean, to the 2023 2023 budget.
yeah,
Interestingly, the 2018 budget by I think Jaitley was still then the finance minister, was actually not
yeah.
very populist, while
That's
it
right.
was the 2019. I mean, it was. I think it was generally described as kind of an interim budget or vote on account or all that, where I think Piyush Goyal did all the heavy lifting in terms of soaps for taxpayers and all that. So, looking at that pattern, I mean, because for a lot of Indian middle class, I think like whatever the budget, the voluminous budget papers apart, one really interesting factors would be like the direct tax reforms and possibly the tax reforms really linked to the market. Do you think like the government will have an appetite to do this year in the coming budget? What's your broad
Yeah,
sense
my
on that?
guess is this year's budget will be split into two parts. One is, see, like, as you correctly said, 2018, which was Jaitley's last budget, had made several changes, reforms for the jobs part, where, for example, they said that contract hiring and fixed time labor contracts were all introduced in order to increase jobs. So that was a jobs oriented thing in order to push up jobs, and a lot of concessions were given for employer contributions to provident fund and those kind of things, right? So I think they're concentrated on the macro side of benefiting individuals. In 2019, when Piyush Goyal presented the interim budget, which actually became the real middle class budget, so that budget got split into two parts because the government was confident that they will be ending up uh, presenting six budgets during a 5-year term instead of five.
Right. Yeah,
My
right.
guess is this time they will front load it in 2018. And this thing, because see, I think last time they realized that in 2018, if they had done this, maybe they would have been in a better position by the time the elections arrived and also the local elections in all this in the belt and all that. So this time they may not do that. So they may front load it. There is a lot of talk about changes in capital gains taxes, income tax brackets, and especially the new tax scheme has not taken off where there are few exemptions, but this thing. So I think that changes in the new tax scheme might have some rationalization of capital gains taxes will happen probably. It will get concluded next year, but the main focus on jobs, infrastructure, all those things will keep happening.
Okay.
So that I think is what will happen. I think you basically 2030, 2023-24 is a split budget where a large part of the macro gets done this year, and the last minute election concession might happen partly next year.
Next year.
But yeah,
Okay.
but they may
Jaggi,
front load some of it this year.
wonderful. So, Jaggi, there's a very interesting question from a subscriber, Rishikesh Mafatla.
Yeah,
So this is on a particular theme on which you have kind of written very copiously, and I would say rather very bravely. And Swarajya has also been following your example and covering this. So this is on judiciary, okay? Because
yeah,
like broadly speaking, of course, I think economic, political, social trends are all critical. But then, so this question, I'll just read it out for the benefit of everyone. Is there any hope that NJAC could be uh, kind of, the bill could again come back before the current incumbent CJI retires or remits office? And what do you think will be your prediction? Would the government and the judiciary, I mean, they've been making noises against each other, but you think there is going to be a full-fledged, I mean, they're on a full-fledged collision course, or I think it's just like, you know, institutional some soft punches landed at each other, but then status quo will prevail. So how is your sense
Yeah.
in terms
So
of
my thing is, see, NGAC cannot come back this time. Last time there was political consensus. This time, all the political parties, including parties like Shiv Sena and Congress, have opposed it. So unless they come to some kind of a political consensus, getting it across the parliament will be tough. But if they get it across parliament with some kind of a deal with both Congress and some or three or four regional parties, then it can come. But what will really happen probably is all the verbal skirmishing between government and judiciary may be a preliminary in order to hold behind the scenes talks and see if they can work out some via media. My guess is that the government is not giving up on the attacks on the judiciary, and the judiciary will sooner or later realize that this can't be continuing like this endlessly because they have no leg to stand on. I mean, theirs is a completely illegal interpretation of the constitution. Just because they say it is legal, that it is like they can say night is day because we interpret what is there. Huh? But the fact is, everybody and his aunt knows that they are doing something that is not there in the constitution. Okay, so I think they are on a weak wicket actually in terms of legalities, but they're in a strong wicket because I think their legitimacy is not yet being questioned by the government, but sooner or later that will happen. So two things can happen. If the war worsens, then the judiciary will start becoming very antagonistic to government claims. I think my guess is both will move to some kind of a behind the scenes compromise on how judges are to be appointed. Full fledged new NJAC will wait for 2024.
wonderful. So, Jaggi, I'll pick up another offbeat kind of a question from one of our subscribers, Patnaik, Ravi Patnaik. He is asking, will Oakism get more traction in India in 2023? Because I think like among the many commentators that I follow regularly, you have been someone who's used this particular word very often. Okay, so I mean, of course, we know broadly what it means,
Yeah.
and corporate India, even like judiciary, everybody seem to be on the inflicted by it to some extent. So how do you think it's going to unfold in India, given that that ideology, or I mean, I wouldn't call it a ideology that is kind of becoming little gaining traction in the West, and India usually follows all this fashion fads with a slight deferred mode, right? So what's your
Yeah.
take on?
So my feeling is that it still is not about to collapse immediately, even though it is fundamentally flawed. The thinking, the assumption that some kind of extreme form of liberalism or whatever it is that they call it is somehow it goes against the fundamentals of human nature, and it goes against the fundamental of nature itself. The assumption that we can somehow create some kind of universalist ideal that everybody can follow, and it is going to ridiculous lengths where, for example, they now say that you must not address women as she or her, you have to address them as they, or you must spell women as WOMXN. The idea is that you must degender everybody. And in fact, 2 or 3 days back in the UK, in a UK hospital, some transsexual was put in a female ward, and some woke unionist said, told the women protested they didn't want somebody like that in a women's ward. Look, this is not a women's ward. This is a non-male ward. So anybody can be put there who is not considered a man or something like that. So the
Correct.
point is like this kind of wokeism is actually irritating a lot of people.
Correct.
And actually, safe spaces for women are reducing. If tomorrow you say that anybody who is changed his sex can suddenly compete in a women's event and come first, then women are going to protest, right? Because the whole gender equation is going wrong on practicalities, regardless of whether you don't have to have the old negative attitudes to transgenders and LGBT community and all that. But the fact is, ordinary people find this is nonsense. So I think I still give this traction for 3 4 years. But after that, the West itself will start. Already there is a huge consensus that's building against them. And
Correct.
if Trump had not ruined the thing, Republicans would have won a lot more seats. because I think the Trump, unfortunately, as long as he holds the Republican flag, these kind of I mean, the anti-woke feeling that comes in is getting split. And
Correct.
so, so it looks as though the Democrats have won, but actually it's not the case. It's the wrong guy now in the wrong time, trying to
Mm.
come back to power. That's creating a problem for the anti-woke lobby. And I think it'll die down in its own way. It takes 3, 4, 5 years maybe.
Okay.
And India will face it. Short term, will face stupidities like that, but long term, it's bound to decline and fall.
Jaggi, another question. I think it's from 2, 3 different subscribers, but I mean, I kind of distilling the essence of the question. Bit of this is particular issue where you could tell the trends how you see it's going to unfold. This is in terms of human capital. Either some set of people believe that there is a huge flight of human capital from India, and then there are others who think that there are enormous opportunities for currently NRI Indians, and then we are frequently hit by newspaper reports that this many number of Indians took overseas situation. So, what do you think would be like a pragmatic way to look at it, and also what do you think could be the trends in terms of human capital? Do you need to fear all kind of human capital flight, or we need to like have a strategy which is only focused on say high talent individuals, bringing them back? So what would be your take on it, and what do you see is the trend as well?
See, it's like this at the individual level, people will perform, people will go where they think they're best likely to maximize their own personal benefits or goals, right? So, my guess is from a medium to long term perspective, India is an attractive place to invest, and people will come, and there will be enough Indians available to take that thing forward. The fact that some people are seeking a Western standard of living is different, right? Here we know that it will take us another 15, 20 years before our air becomes cleaner, our water becomes cleaner, our regulatory systems become more benign. This is what people are fleeing, if at all, because they don't want to have to spend 10 days trying to get to pay a power bill or something, even though digitization has changed all that. But say if you're a businessman, you don't want to be struggling with basic things like this, that for a power connection or to get some small thing. And here the culprits are not the center but the states. The people who are driving out these people are actually the states which are not reforming as fast as the center is in terms of making it easier for business. And so the millionaires who may be going elsewhere, they are looking at ease of living and ease of business. And ease of business needs states to step up to the plate and start removing regulations. This thing currently there are simply too many regulations, and most of the regulations regarding land, power, water. These are the basics you need for any company, and these are all controlled at the state and municipal level, and these are the ones that are not reforming. So once these fellows reform, I think this trend will be reversed. But India has enough surplus talent where the exit of a few millionaires is not going to make a big difference to us, at least over the foreseeable 5 to 10 or 15 years. After that, if we continue to bleed talent, that will be a different point. But don't forget, a lot of the talent that's gone abroad is actually coming back. So we are not counting the millionaires who are coming back in, at least for business, even if they don't want to stay there. They may want to live in Singapore or Bay Area, but their businesses are here. So we should be happy with that.
Okay. Jaggi, another question, since this is also another issue that you write very frequently. It's from a subscriber called Rayappa, who's from Hyderabad, Telangana. He is asking whether is there a possibility of a full-fledged India-China war this year. I mean, this year meaning the coming year, given the recent skirmishes in the border, and broadly now that whether Z himself is looking at it as a strategy to consolidate after all the recent setbacks or whatever. You think there is a real possibility, or you think it will be like a what it is now, where on off kind of very borderish escalation. So, what's your sense on it actually?
So my guess is that the Chinese definitely want to keep us on an edge, because what they've realized is that Pakistan was supposed to keep on an edge, but that country is collapsing internally, and those are just pinpricks as far as we are concerned. So we have stopped bothering about Pakistan. so much. And now the Chinese feel that they must do some things needling of their own in order to put us off balance. But their first priority is still Taiwan, and Taiwan, unfortunately, is very difficult. So I do not know whether, in the short run, even if they do, if you go for a 10 or 15-day war, it's not going to substantially change anything on the boundary. So I don't know what they will gain by it, because all that they will do is India will build many more alliances. But uh, there is a risk in the next 2 to 5 years, because that is when India will be vulnerable both financially and politically for a while. More financially, economically, basically, because this is a time when we can't afford to shift huge amounts of resources to defense. So for us and for our growth, it's good if we don't have anything more than minor skirmishes. But the point is, it will damage China even more globally, because already what the way they have handled everything has made them the pariah of the world. You know, so they, I don't know, they are not as stupid to think that they can go to a war and think they'll win it or anything, because we are not a 1962 case. Yes, we will be under pressure, but I think they know that this is not going to end. My best guess is they will want to keep us on edge, but not necessarily go to a war, because their priority is still Taiwan. And in Taiwan, I don't know what they will do.
Sure. Okay, Jaggi, just pause. And so basically, I tried asking some of the questions from which were return submissions by the subscribers, and actually we had like more than 100 questions from them. So I thought that at least some of the common thematic questions I could kind of consolidate and ask.
Hey,
Now, with your permission, maybe we could invite like couple of subscribers to, raise their, probably raise their hands, and maybe Jones can help also coordinating. Only one request to our valued subscribers is that, if you could ask something that wasn't discussed, so that, we'll do that. And before that, we'll be sending you a copy of Jaggi's presentation to all the subscribers, and hopefully, if you have missed or joined little late, you will be getting a copy. And also, we are trying to get this set up also right. And this is the first in a series of experiment. So, in case we have some problem in the interactive session now, apologies. But anyway, we are trying now. So who would like to go first? I see a lot of people. Anyone can raise their hands, and probably Jones can throw it open. If you want to come on the video, audio.
No, there is a button on the screen which shows a hand symbol. So once you press it, we'll be able to throw you on the screen for all the subscribers.
Yeah. So anybody wants to take a stab at the questions? I see like over 200 people there in the.
Yeah, I think you can select some question from one of them, or if they want to talk.
No, I think we'll. Someone wanted to ask. Go ahead. Yeah.
AKC, please unmute yourself.
Unmute yourself, please.
Good evening, sir. Sir, I just want to know, will the left continue to be at the payrolls of Zakat funds in your foreseeable future, and will the control of Zakat funds over the authorities over all over the world continue in near future, or you see some possible reversal of the trend?
Left is not in control of zakat funds. It's only the Islamists who are in control of it. What happens is that the left has aligned themselves with the Islamists. So in that sense, you could say that something. I
They
don't
need
think
money.
that. Why
So
do you
they
think?
need money, and the biggest floating fund is a Zakat fund.
Yes, correct.
Zakat,
But
zakat funds everything, whether it is from your Facebook funding
yeah,
or to social media funding or advertisements. Everything is actually funded by Zakat. Zakat is the biggest floating fund in the world, which
yeah,
doesn't need any accounting, which doesn't need any accountability. Even you might know that even in Rohingya settlement also, Zakat Fund of North America, Zakat Fund of Funds of Foundation of America, in their website, they declare
yeah,
that they are giving so many helps for settlers of Rohingyas in India.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank
But
you
I
so
mean,
much.
I was not seeing what is the connection between the left and these guys, because these guys are directly funding Rohingyas or local protests, where the left may be joining them.
Actually, the left needs, so basically, left needs money, which they don't get now after losing their government control from many sources. So, like Kanhaiya Kumar, instead of saying China Jindabad, they tell about Pakistan Jindabad, okay?
Right.
And where the Communist Party is already banned, right? So you see, all that left and Islamist nexus is basically because of the zakat funding all over
Possible.
the world,
Possible.
all over the world.
Legacy, we have like, thank you so much. That was a good one.
Yeah, yeah. I think we need to know. The government needs to investigate that part of it, the link between the left and that, because the left is already delegitimates itself in some way. So if they are like in West Bengal election, they had tied up with that Furfura Sharif fellow, and in Kerala, I think Pinarayi Vijayam has some covert understanding with some of the Islamist organizations there. So I think whether it is because of, you are saying it is because of the funding. So I'm saying left and these guys are probably together even without the funding. Woke liberalism, for example, gets a lot of funding, but they are still on the side of the Islamists. You know.
Jones, if you can unmute Ajay, okay, Ajay Ganekar, and after that Jyotsna. I think Jyotsna's raised her hand. Ajay, are you there? If you can unmute Ajay Ganekar. I think he wanted to ask a question. Ajay?
Yep. Hopefully now you can hear me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
clear.
So, Jaggi sir, I had typed this question anyways in the chat window. My question was, will there be at any point in time a serious attention paid to how climate change is handled as a factor that will influence a municipal election or a state or a national level election? Because that point completely seems to be missed anywhere and everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, the point is it is not impacting even in the global west. So it's unlikely to impact this level of elections in India for a very long time. I mean, broadly speaking, we are aligned with the need to reduce dependence on certain kinds of fuels. We're trying to be net, net positive on net zero emissions by 2070 and all. That's very far away. That's nearly 50 years away. So basically, I don't think anybody is going to do. And not only that, because of the Ukraine war, actually all our countries have actually gone back on those things, at least for this year and the next. They're going to do that. So I don't see it impacting our things. We will tend to be impacted maybe because see, we are used to the direct impact of climate change for a very, very long time. For us, annually, floods and droughts are considered as normal. And now in the East Coast, we think that annually flooding of Chennai or Bangalore or this thing, we curse the municipal corporation and then go over. I guess it will take some time before we realize that the connection between climate change and what's happening in our cities and coastal areas. It will take time. It won't happen. It will not impact any election immediately.
Jyotsna, I
Yeah.
think, can you,
Hi, can you
Jyotsna,
hear
go ahead.
me?
Yeah, we can hear you well, Jyotsna. Go ahead.
Jaggi sir, hi.
Yeah.
I have just one question, but there is a one small, part of it as well. If you if you give a relatively higher influencing power to freebies and socialistic measures,
Yeah.
as promised by parties like AAP, Congress, etc., would your focus for BJP come down? That's my key question. And in your analysis, in your prediction, in your studies, closely, I mean, especially pan India across industries, which industry groups, whether it's corporates or MSMEs or SMEs, are going to be a big swing for BJP in the next forthcoming elections?
Big swing meaning, Jyotsna, like in terms of
Positive, positive.
Okay. I mean, okay. I think we
Yeah.
got the gist of it.
Yeah.
In terms of the policies and everything, perhaps I think
Absolutely right.
the
Okay.
reaction would be positive. Yeah.
Yeah. No, so coming to the freebies question, I think the opinion is now slowly beginning to turn against endless freebies. I
Hmm.
think as even AAP will realize that what it can do in Delhi, it cannot do anywhere else. So
Hmm.
all the other states are semi-bankrupt, and the more they promise free power and free water, they're going to be in deep, deep trouble. So this is okay as a calling card when you go to Gujarat or Himachal, but Himachal you got zero, Gujarat you got 12%, and despite all these things. So my guess is that the freebie culture has reached its high point, and from now it will decline because the state's ability to fund freebies has reduced substantially, and all their electricity boards are actually in deep trouble.
Yeah.
So you are not going to get more freebie culture anymore, but limited things which are absolutely necessary for the poor will continue.
Okay.
So that part is there. As far as the what is the other question about?
Corporate SME, which are the corporate
Yeah.
SMEs
So
which
Which will
what
give
has happened
positive swing to
substantially
BJP.
during the
Yeah.
Modi tenure, especially the first term, is that formalization was the theme. So people didn't want too many fly-by-night companies that exist only for excise concessions and things like that. So there was a major attack on the informal sector, which in retrospect I would say was wrong. But what is going to happen is over a period of time, you will have a larger growth in formal sector, and India will develop that crucial middle sector, which is both competitive and it will be job creating. That is, in Germany, for example, you have this Mittelstand, which is the backbone of the economy. They are formal sector, they get formal finance, and they get this thing. And so, what is happening is right now SMEs are in trouble, but slowly they're being reformalized. So, if you are looking at it from say from a 5 to 7 year perspective, you will find a very strong middle sector coming in India,
Okay.
which is now being formed through a mixture of startups, formal funding, through aggregator funding, all kinds of things. So, a lot of formal finance and all is happening across this thing, and also the digitization pressure from UPI and the central bank digital currency will ensure that people will no longer want to stay in a fly-by-night business which survives purely on evading taxes. I think that part of informal sector was really impacted. But I think you would say I would say the strategy of going too fast did create damage in the SME sector, but that damage is now being undone. And if you're looking at, say, from 2027, I'll say we'll have a very strong middle sector, which will create uh, good jobs, good growth, and good tax revenues.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Rakesh Bandari, if I can inviting you to ask a question, actually. Thank you, Rakesh. Go ahead. Sorry, you're driving, and so appreciate. Oh,
I hope you have stopped
Can you
somewhere.
hear me? Can you hear me?
yeah, we can
Yes.
do it. Go ahead.
Okay, Jaggi thank you for organizing this. And I'd like to ask a question one of the viewers asked already about Zakat funding. My question will be, when is the temple funding going to be start under government control? To me, it's a very, very big, important thing for revival of Hindu ecosystem in India. The
Yeah.
temples are free for the government control of their funding, and particularly I know that 13,000 temples in Tamil Nadu can't even have a puja because of lack of money, and billions of dollars. It's a pretty like a solid state of slavery which is existing on Hindus. So what's the state of that happening with the current government? They can do with a change of law in parliament. Nobody can oppose it. So where do we stand on that?
Yeah. So my thing is this process of thinking of freeing temples and this thing has just begun. So by the time you see, right now all parties are very happy controlling temples because there's a lot of money to be controlled. It is, even though the BJP may not theoretically be in favor of controlling temples, but actually it doesn't mind controlling them. In fact, the Ram temple will come largely under state control because of the nature of the Supreme Court verdict and the fact that if you wanted to set it up fast, you needed government action to propel it. Point is, at some point, this has to become a cross-party initiative. Otherwise, it will not work. So, and also Hindus need to organize themselves into a situation where they can provide good governance in these temples. Currently, if you are going to be quarreling over every minor thing, then I think you need to create the legal structure and the management structure to run these temples. So I think over a period of, if you create a 5 to 7 year plan and you can get one government to move in that direction, all governments will ultimately move. Right now, what has happened is the nature of the conversation has just started changing, where earlier people were anti-Hindu. Today, even the Congress party says, no, no, I'm a Shiv Bhakt, I'm wearing Janiyo and all that stuff. And even Aam Aadmi party says, let us print Lakshmi and Ganesha on our currency notes. So the conversation has just started changing. But the BJP should have done much, much more, but they haven't done it. Because some of the easy things they could have done, like say, for example, I mean, set up the institutions for intellectual regeneration of a lot of Hindu thought that they could have done in the past 8 years, which they did not do. They focused on winning elections. But maybe it's difficult to explain what a political party thinks is important. This is something we in the society need to start doing. Once society starts doing something, politics will automatically reflect it.
Thank you so much, Rakesh. Next question, Jayant Krishnamurthy.
Yeah, hi, sir. I'm an ardent fan of yours. Thank you for this opportunity. I've got a small question. We see that when crude oil was pushed to $120 around 5 to 6 months back, petrol prices had gone up to over 100 plus. Now that it is hovering around $65 to $70 range, so why don't we see the corresponding decline as well, sir?
Yeah, because what has happened when the crude prices are high, I think the oil marketing companies lost a lot of money. So right now they have to recoup some of those losses before if the government is not to subsidize them. So they're actually evening it out by letting the price remain high, so that oil marketing companies make up for the losses of the previous 8 to 12 months in the next 4 to 6 months, so that the government level of subsidy will be less. And generally, I think India is actually following a very, very sensible policy of having high petroleum prices. We don't produce much of it, we import most of it. And not only that, the whole point of shifting to renewables will not work if petroleum prices were cheap. Suppose we were actually selling petrol at say 50 rupees. Why would anybody put up a solar power plant? Because it becomes competitive in terms of per unit cost only when the comparative cost of fossil fuels is much higher, and then it makes sense actually to go for solar panels, wind power, whatever it is. So from a long-term national perspective, though there is a lot of pain at the individual level who can't afford petrol at 100, 120 rupees per liter and all that. The individual pain is that, but as a country, I think high petrol prices serve us very well. Also, the high revenues both states and center make from it actually is helping fund a lot of the anti-poverty schemes. Though there's no direct correlation, but without this buoyancy, why are states not willing to put petrol under GST? Precisely because that is one flexible source of revenue which no state wants to give up. So, and even if they do give it up and put it in GST, petrol will be taxed at 80%. It will not be, at the GST level. So, in order to retain current revenues. So, I think we have to bite our tongues and sit with it. But long term, it is good for us because it is helping the renewable shift.
So once energy, I mean, the renewable energy is in full force, can we expect inflation to come down, sir?
Oh, yes. Because energy only has a high capital cost, but running costs tend to be very low. So, actually, even say, for example, if you want to give farmers free power, logically, you should say that you guys should be on a separate solar powered grid, so that your cost of production is very low and you get the free power whenever that power is available. And the main power is charged at a regular commercial rates, and which you want for additional things. For your core operation, you should be dependent on renewables.
Wonderful. Sir, with that, I think we'll come to the end of this wonderful interactive session. Hope that, this was just a first of a series, and we want to kind of review how this went and improve upon, and we definitely planning to bring a series of thought leaders, subject matter experts on a host of subjects. So the next year we've lined up a lot of events. I think like digital events would be much more easier for a fledgling outlet like us to produce, and hopefully, one or two physical events as well for our subscribers. Thank you so much, and we hope to, get Jaggi back either ahead of the union budget or just after the union budget to, have a good analysis. I mean, Jaggi has been kind of, a very sharp watcher of the political economy. More so, I think he's probably seen around 40, 45 union budgets, and I think we'll definitely pick some insights from him in the run up to the budget. Thank you so much, folks, wherever and whichever part of the world you are in, and really grateful for your continued support. And Swarajya thrives only because of you, and please continue to support us. Thank you so much. Have a great evening, all of you. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you very much.